Andy and the sky this month.
Hi, my name's Andy Beaton. I'm talking to you from my subterranean basement office in downtown Toronto. And I'm here to talk about the sky this month, what we've got to look forward to in the sky between now and the next meeting. So I have a usual list of stuff I like to go through: the big picture, important stuff coming on key dates, the moon, planets, the deep sky, double star in case Blake is watching. I don't want him to get mad at me. A variable star, and whatever is coming up in the world of spaceflight. So here we are. This is tonight in a couple hours. If you have the ability to look through the clouds and the rain and see the sky, this is what we'd be seeing. It's our typical midwinter sky: Orion, Taurus, all your favorite winter constellations. We have a few planets there. We've got Neptune just setting. Moon is also close to the horizon. No big planets, as you may have noticed on any clear nights we've had recently. If we wait for a month and then get up at the crack of dawn and see what's up, say 5 o'clock in the morning on March 3rd, just before the next meeting, we get to see our summer constellation starting to appear. We've got Cygnus rising there. We've got Scorpius and a bit of Sagittarius appearing over the southeast horizon. So, we've got a sign that spring and summer are going to return, and we're not going to be stuck under snow like this for the rest of the year. Okay, this is what happens when you take a look at the clock and see when astronomical twilight is stopping and starting. The nights are getting shorter. We're past the winter solstice. Tonight, astronomical twilight ends at 10 to 7 and starts again around 5:40 in the morning. In a month, dark won't be dark until 7:30, and it'll only stay dark until 5 o'clock. Good news for people who like a bit of daylight in their life. Bad news for astrophotographers who need as much dark night as possible. So, key dates: new moon on the 11th, moon at apogee on the 18th, and perigee on March 2nd. I've thrown in a little note there of which one is which because, I've been doing this for decades and I never remember. Full moon on the 27th, if you want to schedule non-astronomy activities for that night. And, that's it, because really this is a seriously dull month. There's nothing exciting listed in any of the major sources I've been able to find about stuff that's happening this month and no other time. It's probably a good time for lots of cloud and snow and get it out of our system. So the moon, first quarter on the 19th, full moon on the 27th. New moon on the 11th is the one that everybody really cares about because that means we're getting our best night for dark sky viewing. The lunar X, if people are interested in that, it's a cool shadow feature on the moon. When the sun is at a certain angle, it lights up a couple of crater rims to make it look like there's an X floating above the lunar surface. It's pretty cool. This is not an optimal time for it. It kind of happens just before noon on February the 8th. But, with decent telescopes, you should be able to see it even during daylight. That's a good thing about the moon. You can always see it. Planets coming up. As I say, this is an exceedingly dull month in many ways. We'll get some limited views of Mercury in the morning once we get towards the end of the month. Same with Venus, visible before sunrise in the early part of the month. Otherwise, it's going to be too close to the sun. Mars is visible just before dawn. That means it's going to be low to the horizon when the sun sets, which means we're going to get lousy views of Mars as well. So your rocky planets, this may not be the month for that. And the big planets, the showpieces. Well, Jupiter, it's going to be hidden by the sun until later in the month, and we'll just get a glimpse of it early in the morning. Uh, by mid-month, the Saturn will also be appearing in the dawn. Um, it's not going to be an outstanding view of either planets, but if you're up that early and you've got uh, a portable telescope, yeah, at least drag it out, have a look. I mean, it's always nice to see the rings of Saturn and the moons of Jupiter, even if you're not going to see amazing detail or anything like that. Uranus and Neptune, those are your best options for seeing planets in the evening. Um, Neptune is pretty close to the sun. It's going to set not long after sunset. It's not an optimal object this month. On the other hand, Uranus is in Aries. It's good and high when the sun sets, and you'll get a few hours of good viewing of that before it disappears. If you have a large telescope, you could probably track a few of its moons as well. The dwarf planets, Pluto and Ceres are the ones that you can actually see from Earth with amateur equipment. Pluto's in Sagittarius and close to the sun, so it's kind of a write-off for this month as well. Ceres, however, is going to be a good one. It's right up there between the Pleiades and the Hyades. It's a ninth magnitude, so it should be easy to find. And the really cool thing about Ceres is it moves quickly, at least as far as celestial objects go. So if you want an interesting project on all the clear nights we're getting, make a careful note of its position from night to night and watch it as it moves along through the sky. Now, when I say the sky is dull, just because there is no planets and stuff, and we've still got a universe of things to look at. So dull is relative. Um, I picked M1, the Crab Nebula, as my deep sky object for this month. It's a bit of a challenging object. Um, the supernova remnant from I think 1054. It's interesting in a lot of ways. For one thing, you'll need it for your Messier list. For another thing, it's a very weird and interesting astronomical object. It's a supernova remnant being lit up by a pulsar within it. This pulsar is just blasting away synchrotron radiation as it rotates at insanely high speeds with powerful magnetic fields. It's a very interesting object from the point of view of physics. Um, what that means is it's not only an emission nebula, it's a reflection nebula, and it's reflecting weird wavelengths of light. The nebula filter is not going to be as helpful as you had hoped. The emission nebula, the hydrogen that's being lit up by the radiation, it'll help with that, but all the reflection light, it's not going to do a thing for you. The downside is it's pretty dim and it's a very low contrast object. I myself have never seen it from the city. I've tried many times, but it's just not there. You really need a dark sky and a bit of aperture to be able to track it down. And I've thrown in a picture of it there. This is one taken by the European Southern Observatory. It doesn't look like a crab to me, but I'm not an 18th century astronomer, and my imagination's not that great. There's a thing in evolutionary sciences where apparently crabs have evolved, or crab-like creatures have evolved 8 different times in the history of life on Earth, and I guess that's behind that. People just naturally tend to see crabs. There are cool things you can do if you're really into the dedicated business of astronomy. Dig out your camera, try and image the Crab pulsar, the 16.5 magnitude star at the center. If you're really into it, you could even hook up some kind of rotating thing so you could get images with and without the pulsating pulsar. This is all professional astronomy stuff from 50 years ago, but the amateur business has really stepped up over the past decade. So I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't somebody on this call who had the technical know-how to be able to do that. Something else you can do is image the nebula. Get a good, sharp, detailed image. Wait for 10 or 20 years, come back, take another one, and look for motion in the tendrils, see as it's expanding. If you don't feel like waiting for 20 years, look up one of the many images that have been taken over the past century. I'm absolutely sure you can find something with enough detail in it that you should be able to compare it to the best images you're going to get. And the other thing you could try, and this is something that I've always been curious about but never done, is try some radio astronomy. You read about people who've, in the pioneering days of radio astronomy, set up networks of wires and poles in their own backyard, and were detecting things like Jupiter and Scorpius X1 and the Crab Nebula. It's a thing that could be detectable by one of us with amateur equipment. So if you're really ambitious and you're sick and tired of all the clouds that are over us all the time, there's an option for an astronomical project that would really impress your friends. I'm also going to throw Levy 401, item 401 on the Deep Sky Gems list in your observer's handbook. A small telescope, it's a Y-shaped asterism. Winston Churchill's V signal. I'm not going to do it in front of the camera here because it's rude in many parts of the world. But I will suggest it for a couple of reasons. One, it's the first step towards your Deep Sky Gem certificate. It's something to look at in the sky when you're just waiting for your telescope to cool down and before you can start your serious observing. And I also want to point it out because Frank Dempsey suggested it to me. And one of the things that I like about the RSC is that I am not a lone astronomer. I've got a community around me. And yeah, for this talk, if you've got stuff that you think I should know about that's coming up in the month, please let me know. Send me an email. And I would be happy to have a look at it and throw it into the talk if it seems like something that people would be interested in. So comets and meteors, well, meteors, yeah, no major meteor showers, no minor meteor showers, a couple of little meteor dribbles. If you're out having a look at the clear night and you happen to see a meteor, you might trace it back to Hydra or Crucius and see if one of those field meteors is actually one from a minor meteor shower. But I'm not going to suggest that anybody schedule a night of observing out in the freezing cold to look for a good meteor shower because there's just nothing there. So we'll skip over that. What we do have, though, are some decent comets. 19P Borrelly is ninth magnitude in Pisces. That should be easy to target for just about any telescope and maybe binoculars if you're in good sky. 104P Coel in Cetus. C 2019 L3 Atlas. It's a 9.7 in Gemini, and it's kind of fading away now, but this has been a good comet for many months now. I think we've just about had all the fun we're going to get out of it, but it's still there if you haven't seen it yet and want to go looking for it. 67P, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that and embarrass myself or its discoverers. 9.8 magnitude in Cancer. That's actually going to be a good candidate too, because it's going to be right overhead during prime observing time for us over the next month. Now, since this is on the internet, and I'm thinking there's a non-zero chance that being watched by someone in the southern hemisphere. 2021 A1 Leonard and 22P Kopf are both still visible, still bright, but only visible from the southern hemisphere. So if you're down there and you've got a clear sky, uh, I can't tell you exactly where they are. You'll have to do your own look up on the internet for that for any given night. But those are two brightish comets that are probably still worth looking up. So I always like to throw in a double star. Um, Double stars are fun. They're always there, and they make good observing projects. Good way to test your equipment and your own observing skills. Procyon is the one I've picked this time. Uh, Earlier on, I did Sirius, and this is the same sort of deal. It's a bright star with a white dwarf companion. This one, however, is even more challenging than Sirius. For one thing, the white dwarf companion, is closer, it's fainter, you've got a wider gap in the brightness between the primary and the secondary, and the geometry is not quite as useful. And Sirius is more like this, Procyon's more like this, so you get less of a gap going from the primary to the standby if you're looking at it from a point of view of the movement in the sky. And the reason I point that out is one of the ways to find these white dwarfs is to set up your telescope so that you're looking at a post or a wall or something where you're expecting the star to appear. And if you wait patiently, uh, the white dwarf companion should appear first. So for that reason, you'd want a nice wide separation between the two stars side to side. Don't get a lot of that in Procyon, so it's a bit more challenging. You can do it with an occulting eyepiece, which is an eyepiece that has a black bar through it. You put the black bar over the primary, and you can orient it as necessary, and then have a much better chance of seeing the secondary star. You could try it with a camera, and the astrophotographers here will know the tricks better than I do. Things like rotating your telescope tube so that the spider arms holding up your secondary cause the diffraction spikes to point away from the white dwarf. Now, I always love to have a variable star. Variable stars are my thing. You know, that's what drags me out on the worst nights to observe. And this time I've picked T Tauri. Um, it's a very interesting star. It's a very young star, not quite on the main sequence, and has a lot of rapid changes, usually in the zero 0.1 magnitude range. Now, experience doing deep sky during variable star observing has led me to believe, and this is backed up by a lot of research, that the human eye can accurately measure 1/10 of a magnitude change or 1/10 of a magnitude difference between one star and another. So this is a really good target for someone who wants to, test their visual acuity and really test your skills. And this one's even cooler because it has a nearby reflection nebula, Hines variable nebula. And the reason it's a variable nebula is because it's reflecting light from a variable star. So you can not only observe how the star is changing brightness, but you can observe how the nebula is apparently changing shape as it gets lit up in different ways by its star. Now, if you're the kind of person who has an infrared telescope, you can also look for its companion. It is a double star. I'm going to assume that very few people here have infrared telescopes or a platform on the Atacama Desert to look. But it's a thing you can look up online, see what the professional researchers are doing. That's just one more thing that makes it an interesting star. And this is another suggestion I got from Frank Dempsey, R. Leporis. I figure that since the meteors and planets have let us down so badly, we're going to do 2 variable stars this month. We're going to indulge my whims. R. Leporis, very red star in the constellation Lepus, just below Orion. A good wide range there, 5.5 to 11.7 magnitude. It should be visible to the naked eye from a reasonably dark sky. And what we have here is an old red giant star with carbon buildups in its atmosphere that come and go. And this is one of the brightest of the carbon stars. If you dig out your observer's handbook, you can actually find a whole page on carbon stars, which are really bright red. It's one of those things, if you're going to show your friends that there are colors in the stars, yeah, this is an outstanding red example. And just because it's a weird world of coincidences, this is also known as Hind's Crimson Star. Yeah, that's the same Hind who named the variable nebula around T Tauri. So, yeah, this is the Hind celebration month. So what we have coming up in the world of spaceflight, the James Webb Space Telescope is at its location. It's going to be being tested and brought to life over the next few months. We have to keep a sharp eye on that. I'm expecting fascinating and amazing things. To be honest, I was pretty nervous that it wouldn't get there. It would crash on takeoff or fail to unfold, but everything is going very nicely so far, knock on wood, and we should be good. The Indian Space Agency is doing their SSLV demonstration launch, scheduled for sometime within the next month, no date specified. I'm skipping over all the Falcon launches. They're not really news anymore. They're just so common that there's nothing special about them anymore. You know, if they'd done something like launch 2 of them and land them beside each other, you know, that's the kind of thing I would tune in for. But just seeing another satellite go up, we've seen it all before. The ISS will be passing overhead in the evening until February 7th, in the morning from the 16th until the next meeting. I'm sure all the long-term astronomers have seen the ISS pass over many times. I myself never get sick and tired of it. And if there's anybody just getting into the hobby, check out heavensabove.com for times and locations and go and check it out. It is absolutely fascinating to see a spaceship with people in it flying overhead. It's like science fiction come to life. But what if it's cloudy? What if indeed? Well, we've got all kinds of astronomy-based projects at zooniverse.org. There are lots of other science projects there too, but we're going to stick with astronomy. 4 projects which I thought looked interesting this month: the Solar Jet Hunter, Meerkat looking for bursts from space, excuse me, the Black Hole Hunter, and G-Witch Hunter for hunting gravitational waves. These are all projects where you and I and anybody can get involved and get some hands-on science under our fingers. And the other thing I'm going to suggest is remote telescopes. You know, just because the sky is terrible here and it's going to snow for the rest of our lives, there are plenty of places where, thanks to the modern universe we live in, to the internet, we can track down robotic telescopes that are available for people like you and I to use. The RASC robotic telescope is obviously going to be the first one on the list, since it belongs to all of us here in the RASC. But there are others available. Look up telescope.org, SLU.com. NASA has its own micro observatory that's open to the public. And Skynet University was one that I found online that looked promising as well. Now, The non-RASC ones, I cannot vouch for whether they're good, whether they're cheap, whether you'll be able to get to use them because they're too crowded. But thanks to the miraculous power of search engines, Googling for robotic telescopes or remote telescopes will turn up all kinds of options for you, and hopefully get you a bit of night sky until we get some proper night sky here of our own. And that is what I have for tonight and for this month. And I hope that's got something useful for you. And are there any questions?
Yeah.
Andy, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation, Andy. Well done as always. Let's go to Emma with some presentations. Some questions for Andy.
Hi, yeah, so we got a couple of comments from Chris Vaughn. So starting off, Mars will skim through the north edge of Messier 22 in the Great Sagittarius cluster on Saturday morning, March 5th.
Okay.
Sunday night, the max eastern lunar libration will favor Mare Smithy and Mare Marginis.
Okay, always worth knowing. I like the libration question because that allows me to tell people to look for Mare Orientalis, which is a sea on the far side of the moon, which appears as the moon librates back and forth. I don't think we have a good apparition of it this month, but for future months, keep an eye out for it and watch for the far side of the moon.
Very cool. And we also got a question from Paul Markov. What is the period of R. Leporis?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have an answer for that off the top of my head. If only I had a handbook here that had that kind of information. Yeah, sorry, I don't have that immediately for you. I can get an answer for you in the chat before the evening is out.
That's great. Thank you so much. That's it from me.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Andy.